The morning sun had barely crested the horizon when Luna slipped through the side gate of the kindergarten, her heart pounding not with fear but with the feverish thrill of vengeance that had been building inside her since she'd narrowly escaped Will's meticulously orchestrated trap. Every step she took echoed with purpose, her fingers tightening around the cold steel of the handgun hidden beneath her leather jacket. She could still taste the bitterness of betrayal, the sting of humiliation that Will had aimed at her, an attempt to ruin her name, her life, to expose her deepest vulnerabilities. But Luna had outsmarted him, outmaneuvered him in the dark alleys of Los Angeles's underbelly, and now she carried not just a weapon, but a storm of retribution. She moved with stealth through the playground, where empty swings creaked in the morning breeze, the sandbox untouched, and a single tricycle lay abandoned near the wall. In that silent moment, the world around her held its breath, unaware of the violence that was about to consume its innocence. Inside the kindergarten, a frazzled teacher was unlocking the double doors to the music room, her coffee cup trembling in her hand. Luna had forced her at gunpoint to lead her straight to Steffi, who had arrived just minutes before to soothe Hayes, her beloved son, with gentle melodies on the little xylophone. The teacher's eyes were wide with panic, her voice quivering as she stammered out directions. Just down the hall, turn left, the music room's the second door on the right, please, don't hurt anyone. Luna forced her onward, jabbing the barrel of the pistol into the teacher's back until the woman practically ran, her footsteps echoing on the linoleum floor. Outside, the city of Los Angeles still moved at its usual frenetic pace, oblivious to the nightmare unfolding in this corner of a sleepy elementary school. But within the narrow corridors of that building, time slowed to a crawl, each heartbeat stretching into eternity. When Luna burst into the music room, the scene was surreal, tiny chairs pushed back in a half-circle, colorful notes painted on the walls, and there, in the center of it all, Steffi, a picture of serene maternal focus, as she helped Hayes place the mallets on the xylophone bars. The child's laughter, innocent and bright, cut through Luna's heart like a blade, stoking a conflict deep within her. Yet there was no room for mercy. Her world had already tilted, and in that tilt, she saw only justice. The gun rose, steady in her grip, and Steffi's eyes met hers first with confusion, then with horror as Luna's voice cut through the soft timbre of the room. You think you can protect him from me? You think your high society walls will keep me away? I've come here for justice, and I will not leave without it. The mallets clattered to the ground as Hayes backed into his mother's arms, the room spinning for him and for Steffi, who felt the air sucked from her lungs. Don't make me hurt him, Luna insisted, every word a promise of violence. Don't make me kill your precious son to teach you the price of your sins. Back in the hallway, Steffi's desperate hush whisper into her cell phone barely registered through her pounding temples. Finn, it's me. Luna's in the music room. She's got a gun and she's threatening Hayes. Please come now. Her voice quavered, tears brimming as she pressed the phone between her shoulder and her ear, pacing in agonizing circles. Each second that ticked by was an eternity. She remembered how Finn had held her just days ago, whispering reassurances as she fretted over the future. In that moment, every promise Finn had ever made to protect her and their son solidified into a lifeline. She leaned against the cool wall, pressing her palm to her forehead as she tried to steady her breathing, willing Finn to answer, willing him to sprint across town and pull her out of this waking nightmare. Meanwhile, farther down the corridor, Sheila, Luna's aunt, and the one person in Luna's twisted world who still held a flicker of maternal affection for her, stood frozen outside Luna's shattered shell of a life. News of Luna's disappearance and the ensuing manhunt had reached her through frantic whispers at the hospital where she worked. Every report she heard, every name the news anchors uttered, pulled at her conscience. When she learned that Luna's path of destruction involved Steffi's child, her niece's victimization and Luna's equally vicious intent collided within Sheila's heart with a force that left her breathless. She had rushed to the kindergarten, driven by equal parts dread and hope, dread that she would find Luna in the clutches of madness, hope that she might still pull her back from the brink. Now, as she stood outside the classroom door, she heard Steffi's muffled sobs and Luna's ragged breathing through the thin wood. She pressed her hand to her mouth, torn between her loyalty to her family and her moral duty as a citizen. As a doctor sworn to save lives, not take them. Should she burst in and risk being caught in the crossfire? Should she call the police and betray her own blood? Or could she somehow reason with Luna and defuse the volatile mixture of despair and vengeance that threatened to explode? On the other side, in the music room, Luna's grip on the gun tightened as Hayes began to whimper, his small body trembling against his mother's protective embrace. Steffi, her eyes red and swollen, took a trembling step forward, arms outstretched as though she could shield her child from the gun's malevolent gaze. "Please," she whispered, her voice breaking with grief, "this isn't the way. I know you've been hurt, but he's just a child. Let him go, Luna. Let us help you." Luna's face, framed by her dark hair and lit with a kind of wild resolve, flickered for the briefest moment. In her eyes, Steffi saw a tempest of emotions, rage, sorrow, love, fear, all warring for dominance. But the moment passed, and with a voice as icy as it was pained, Luna replied, "You helped ruin my life. You think you understand pain? You think you know what it's like to watch your whole world collapse? No, but I'm going to make you feel it. I'm going to make you watch." Her finger brushed the trigger, and Steffi's heart convulsed at the raw threat. At that instant, the door behind them creaked, and Sheila stepped forward, her medical ID clipped to her coat glinting under the fluorescent lights. Luna turned, her chest heaving, gun poised. For a heartbeat, the room was suspended in time. Then Sheila spoke, her voice calm but carrying the weight of her authority and the depth of her love. "Luna, please. It's me." Luna's eyes flicked to her aunt, recognition mingling with fury. "You betrayed me." Luna spat, voice cracking. "You let them take everything." Sheila's gaze softened as tears pricked her eyes. "I never wanted that. I tried to stop it. But you have to stop this now." She took a tentative step forward, arms open, as if to embrace Luna and perhaps shield Hayes herself. Steffi watched, stunned, as the two women stood mere feet apart, one armed with a gun, the other armed with compassion and desperate familial loyalty. Behind Sheila, the distant wail of sirens announced the police closing in, the storm of yellow and blue lights flickering through the windows. In that suspended moment, Luna's resolve wavered. Memories of childhood scraped at her mind, laughter shared with Sheila, whispered confidences in dark hallways of the mansion, gentle hands that had once smoothed back her hair. Her finger trembled on the trigger. Steffi, sensing the shift, cried out, "Luna, you don't have to do this. Let him go." The sirens grew louder, and the voices of officers shouting commands filtered down the corridor. Sheila lowered her hands slowly, tears streaming down her cheeks as she implored her niece to choose life over vengeance. The gun wavered, Luna's world teetering between revenge and redemption. And in that pregnant pause, as Los Angeles held its breath and the future of innocent Hayes and tormented Luna hung by a slender thread, the fate of all three women rested on a single decision, one that would reverberate far beyond the walls of this kindergarten and forever alter the lives bound together by love, betrayal, and the quest for justice. Brooke stepped onto the sun-drenched boulevard outside Il Giardino, her arm entwined deliberately in Nick's as photographers' flashes erupted like fireworks announcing a scandalous premiere. The cameras swiveled, lenses lunging toward her polished profile, capturing every calculated step she took in those towering heels. A soft breeze teased the ends of her immaculate hair, but Brooke paid no mind to small comforts. Her eyes flicked out of the corner of her brow for Rich. She could almost taste the shock that would ripple through the social feeds before she even turned the corner, with Nick by her side. Their bodies brushing for the cameras, The world would believe she had moved on. But this was never about Nick. Brooke's lips curved in a knowing smile as the shutters continued to pop. Each flash finding the moment to global headlines. Brooke Logan finds new love. Logan and Newman, a secret romance? The hashtags trended before noon. Hashtag Nick and Brooke. Hashtag Logan Newman. Hashtag Scandal at Il Giardino. Every retweet, every shared shot was a dagger aimed at Taylor's heart and at Ridge's. Brooke felt the familiar thrill of power surge through her. She was forcing Ridge's hand with public perception, weaponizing gossip to make him doubt his choice, sowing a seed of suspicion that would blossom into betrayal on his wedding day. As she and Nick strolled past the picked-over rose bushes, their laughter tame, but their intent savage, Brooke knew that the day's performance had only just begun. Inside the lush courtyard where guests clinked champagne flutes beneath wrought iron arches, Taylor stood at the altar in a gown of ethereal lace, her gaze fixed on the grand double doors that concealed her future. The string quartet's violinist coaxed a trembling melody out of the strings, and Taylor's fingers trembled against the invite card she clutched. She heard the hushed murmur of the crowd, family, friends, society's elite, waiting, watching. Every sense sharpened into agony as she thought of Ridge, the way his gray-blue eyes would soften when he looked at her. The promise of forever that had spoken from his lips when he last whispered her name. But Taylor had not counted on Brooke's mastery of spectacle. Far beyond the veil of rose petals scattered along the aisle, cameras hovered on drones, live streams buzzed through every social feed. The world was watching. In that fragile moment of hope, Brooke's gambit was already underway. Ridge, reviewing his phone, would see the images, the rumors, the tabloids aflame. He would think Taylor had lost her chance. That Brooke's future lay beyond his reach only because she willed it so publicly. Minutes stretched like molten lead. Suddenly, Ridge arrived, tuxedo-clad, hair artfully tousled. His face the very portrait of conflicted devotion. He moved forward, eyes searching Taylor's, but his gaze was clouded by something else. That brief pause, that infinitesimal hesitation as he fished his phone from his inner pocket and checked the fresh gust of notifications, was the fissure Brooke needed. His brow furrowed as he scrolled, each flick of his thumb erasing certainty, each headline reminding him of the lady on the boulevard. Taylor's heart pounded. She tried to smile through tears, to believe that Ridge would turn, that love would conquer gossip. But Ridge's jaw clenched, his shoulders sagged, and as his eyes flickered up, they held a distant pain. He spoke Taylor's name once, soft and tremulous, as if testing whether it still belonged to him, but his next words were not those of a groom about to bind himself in matrimony. Instead, he murmured, "I'm sorry," and shook his head. The stainless steel ring box slipping from his grasp as it clattered against the marble floor. A collective gasp rippled through the assembled guests. Taylor's knees wobbled. The lace of her gown brushed the petals in her path, but it all felt surreal, like she was merely a figure in a play she had forgotten her lines for. Social media erupted in real time. Hashtag Ridge abandons Taylor. Hashtag wedding shock. Hashtag Brooke wins again. Brooke, watching from the shadows beyond, felt triumph surge through her, raw and intoxicating. As Taylor's vision blurred, Ridge stepped back, his face a mask of regret. He surveyed the sea of cameras, both the press corps and the devices now pointed at him by guests, and realized too late how thoroughly Brooke had ensnared him. Each flash reminded him of the moment he'd hesitated, of the promise he'd broken. His heart pounded with shame. Taylor reached out, her hand trembling, but Ridge turned away, shoulders hunched, and retreated down the aisle. Taylor collapsed onto the satin-covered bench, her wedding gown pooling around her like a half-forgotten dream. Brooke, ever the strategist, watched as Ridge approached her, his expression a mixture of longing and defeat. Nick, positioned as her unwitting shield, offered her arm in quiet solidarity. Brooke laid her hand on his elbow. But in her mind she was already planning her next move, how to shape the fallout, how to ensure Taylor's ridicule stretched beyond headlines into whispered gossip at every gala and retreat. Ridge offered Brooke a trembling smile, pained, confused, yearning, and in that moment he surrendered the last ounce of resolve that bound him to Taylor. Brooke's lips curved around a delicate, victorious sigh, and together they stepped into the swirl of flashing lenses, a tableau of manufactured passion that would dominate the tabloids for weeks. Taylor, alone now on the altar, felt the walls of her former life crumble as the world watched her humiliation broadcast live, her tears a testament to Brooke's ruthless cunning. And so the day ended not in vows but in rupture. As Brooke's plan unfolded with surgical precision, to keep Ridge at any cost, to force him to reject Taylor on the world's grandest stage, to melt the ice around his heart not with romance, but with scandal. In the aftershocks, Los Angeles buzzed with speculation. Had Brooke truly found solace in Nick? Or was he merely a pawn in her relentless pursuit of Ridge? Was Ridge weak or ensnared by love? And Taylor, would she ever reclaim dignity after such a public unmaking? Against the pastel glow of sunset, Brooke retreated with Ridge at her side, stepping into waiting limousines while the papers spun their narratives. Behind them, in the silent courtyard, Taylor rose, lifted her skirts, and walked away from the altar that had betrayed her, determined that one day she would rise from the ashes of Brooke's spectacle. But for now, Brooke held the field. Her victory sealed by cameras and whispers and a single, decisive photograph, her arm draped around Nick. Her eyes fixed not on the future, but on Ridge's hasty retreat, proof that in this game of love and power, perception could be made to rule reality.